Okay guys, so last week you looked at patterns. This week we're going to look at some different things we can do with those patterns. So we're going to start by considering the following patterns. So we have in the first figure here a single cube. Then we've added one to the left side and one to the top. So now we have 3 cubes. We've added one more to the left side and one more to the top. So now we have a total of 5 cubes. And for the fourth figure, we've added one more to the left side and one more to the top for a total of 7 cubes. So for the first couple problems, we're going to work with this pattern. So one thing you might be asked to do when given a pattern like this is to create a table of values. So what we do is we create a table. In this case, we'll put the figure number first. So we have figures 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. We try to go up by ones in that column. And try to get about 5 or 6 different rows in there. So I have 6 here. I've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what we're going to do is in the other column, we're going to say how many blocks are in each figure. So we can see just by the diagram, in the first figure, there's 1 block. In the second figure, there are 2 blocks. Oh, sorry, 3 blocks. In the third figure, there are 5 blocks. And in the fourth figure, there are 7 blocks. Once you get to certain rows that you don't quite know the answer to, there are a number of different ways you can solve it. If you can figure out what the pattern is going on in the block column, so we have 1, 3, 5, 7, this should continue as a pattern, then you can just go ahead and fill it in. If not, what I would recommend is sketching the diagrams. So I'm looking at this image and I know that each time I'm adding 1 block to the left side and 1 block to the top. So I know that the fifth diagram is going to look something like this, where I have 5 blocks along the bottom, 5 blocks along the right, for a total of 9 blocks. Okay, and I know the sixth diagram is going to look something like that, and I can count those up, and it's a total of 11 blocks. So I can sketch the next few diagrams to help create the table of values, but if you can just see the pattern there, so for example, I see 1, 3, 5, 7, I'm going up by 2 each time. So even without sketching those diagrams, I might see that after 7 would be 9 and then 11. But if you need to sketch the diagrams, you go ahead. So another thing I might ask you when it comes to a pattern like this, I might give you the equation. So the equation that represents the relationship. So all relationships can be represented as an equation using 2 variables. So the equation that represents this relationship that we just looked at with the different blocks is B for the number of blocks equals 2 times F for the figure number minus 1. So if I give you the equation, you should be able to know how to work with that to figure out some different things about the pattern. So one thing I might ask you to do is verify the equation, which is based on the information you have, is this actually the right equation or have I made a mistake somewhere? So to do that, we look at the table of values. So this is the table of values we just figured out in the last example. And what we do is we take our equation that you'll be given and you pick any pair of values in this table. So I picked F is 2, which is figure 2, and B is 3, which is figure 2 has 3 blocks. So that's what I picked. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in 2 in the place of F in my equation, and I'm going to fill in 3 in the place of B in my equation. So it looks like 3 instead of B equals 2 times 2 instead of F minus 1. I'm not going to worry about the 3. I'm going to leave him right where he is, but I'm going to simplify everything on the right side. So 2 times 2 is 4, and then 4 minus 1 is 3. And I get 3 equals 3, and that's what I want because I know that's a true statement, so I've verified this equation. So to verify an equation, you pick any pair of points in your table of values and you plug them into the equation for the right letter. And you make sure that at the end you get something that makes sense, like 3 equals 3, or 5 equals 5, or 10 equals 10, something like that. So what I might ask you to do is take that same equation and determine the value of b when f equals 10. So it's kind of the same idea, but I only have one value to plug in. So I take my equation, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in 10 for f. So everything else in the equation is the same, but instead of writing f, I'm going to write 10. So then I multiply, and I get 20. And then I subtract, and I get that b is 19. So when f is 10, which tells me when I'm on my 10th figure, if I'm drawing them all, the number of blocks would be 19. So those are the types of questions I might ask you if you're dealing with a pattern. One other question I may give you a table of values with no diagrams to help you out and ask you to complete the table. So if you don't have diagrams to help you out, you just have to find the pattern. So if I look in the X column here, every time I'm adding 1. So I go from 1 to 2, I add 1. 2 to 3, I add 1. So to continue with that X column, I just have to keep adding 1. So 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. I can do the same thing in the Y column. So going 2 to 4, I added 2. 4 to 6, I added 2. So I'm just going to keep adding 2. So 6 plus 2 is 8, and 8 plus 2 is 10.